Good evening from Jakarta and good morning for everyone who's tuning in from the United States. My name is Esther. I want to greet everybody. I'll be your MC and moderator for today's event. Welcome to the second dialogue of the Climate Heroes Dialogue Series. This program is brought to you by Foreign Policy Community of Indonesia, which is the largest foreign policy group in Indonesia and Southeast Asia. This program is also held in cooperation with the United States Embassy in Jakarta with the support of the United States Department of State. Each month for this program, FPCI brings in a pair of climate heroes, one from the United States and one from Indonesia, to speak on a relevant climate issue in a virtual discussion for the Indonesian audience. Through this program, we hope that we can increase climate awareness for the Indonesian public and inspire climate action. Today, I am pleased to welcome more than 2,000 participants from across Indonesia and also United States who are not just tuning in from the Zoom, but also from several live stream channels in our YouTube. I was told that we also have participants from countries like United Kingdom, India, Japan, Netherlands, Canada, Austria, and so many more. So welcome to everybody. You're tuning in from various time zones. Hopefully you'll be enjoying today's discussion. On behalf of FPCI, we also would like to say thank you to our university partners. There are students here joining from President University, Universitas Bosowa, Universitas Gajah Mada, Universitas Islam Negeri Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, Universitas Islam Negeri Sunan Ampel, Universitas Jenderal Ahmad Yani, Universitas Kristen Maranatha, Universitas Slamet Riyadi, Universitas Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa, Universitas Sumatera Utara, dan Universitas 17 Agustus 1945. We also have community partners from civil society organizations such as BEM UI, BEM Universitas Pajajaran, Green Welfare Indonesia, the Ikatan Mahasiswa Teknik Lingkungan Indonesia or IMPLI, Purna Paskibraka Indonesia, Sustain the Nation, and with the Genesis. We are also working with FPCI chapters, and FPCI chapters are an outreach, a branch of FPCI work in various universities across the country, and they're wholly run by the students there, by the young people there. So I want to greet the FPCI chapters. Notably, I want to acknowledge and recognize FPCI chapter Universitas Indonesia, who is our knowledge partner for today's session. They have been involved in developing the substance and also the discussion topics for today's event. So thank you to FPCI Chapter Universitas Indonesia. I know that everyone's excited to jump into the discussion, but before then, I have a few housekeeping rules for everybody to pay attention to. First of all, please make sure that you mute your audio when you are not speaking. Second, please turn on your camera so that everybody can see you, and then we can have a lively and dynamic discussion. Third, please make sure to rename your handle with your institution's name as well. So your institution should go first, followed by your name. I also want to note to everyone that we have live interpretation from English to Bahasa Indonesia. So if you're joining us from Zoom, please click on the bottom right of your screen for language options and select Bahasa Indonesia if you would like to listen in the Indonesian audio. Kami menyediakan penerjemahan dari bahasa Inggris ke bahasa Indonesia. Bagi para peserta yang ingin mendengarkan audio bahasa Indonesia, bisa klik interpretation di layar kanan bawah Anda. Pilih bahasa Indonesia dan mute original audio. Untuk penonton yang bergabung melalui YouTube, kami sudah memberikan 2 YouTube link. Pertama dalam siaran dengan bahasa Inggris, dan yang kedua adalah link untuk siaran dengan bahasa Indonesia. To continue, failure to comply with the session rules will result in your removal from the Zoom meeting. And then I also want to encourage everybody to ask questions. You can submit your questions in the chat box. Later on, the moderator will be reading it to you if your question is selected. Most importantly, please stay tuned until the end of the session, because then we will be distributing the absence form. This way you can get your e-certificate if you stay until the end. So before we jump to the discussion, once again, I want to introduce our 2 amazing climate heroes who are joining us right now. First, we have Nicholas Saputra, actor, film producer, and environmental activist, joining on behalf of Indonesia. Nicholas Saputra, also known as Nico, is an Indonesian environmental activist, and during his 21 years of career as an actor and film producer, he has been heavily outspoken about environmental issues and is involved in many conservation activities. Other than that, he was also the UNICEF Indonesia Goodwill Ambassador And he actively advocates for children's rights. And on top of that, he has also served as the executive producer and the producer of several environmental films through his production company, Panakir Films. Among all, notably, is Samasta, a documentary film in collaboration with the Ministry of Environment and Forestry of Indonesia, which explores intimately the struggle of 7 community leaders in harnessing local wisdom to slow down the effects of climate change. So Nico will be joining us in the discussion later. And then on behalf of the United States, we have Suhaila Eldeep, the Global Outreach Director of Zero Hour, joining from Washington, D.C., United States. But right now, Suhaila is in Miami, so it's the early AM for her there. Suhaila is part of the Zero Hour. Zero Hour is a climate and environmental youth-led movement which focuses on the theme of climate justice. Suhaila, together with Zero Hour, has organized the first ever youth-led march and lobby day in Washington, D.C. And around the world also, together with Zero Hour, she has mobilized over 25 sister marches globally. She was also involved in Zero Hour's Youth Climate Summit in Miami, Florida, which has trained over 350 youths and older allies advocating for climate action. And without further ado, I want to introduce our moderator for today, who is Ambassador Dr. Dino Patijalal, founder and chairman of Foreign Policy Community of Indonesia and the chairman of the board of World Resources Institute. So I want to pass over the floor to Dino to start the discussion.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me, Esther?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay, good. I want to say a big hello to Nick. My kids call him Nickelodeon. It's great for you to be here. And also to Suhaila. And I appreciate you getting up early in the morning to do this important event, climate issues. By inviting Nick first to give his presentation, and then followed by Suhaila. Nick, the floor is yours.
Hi, Padino. Hi, Esther.
Hi, Nick.
And hi, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here. It's a great pleasure. I don't have a particular presentation for tonight, actually, but I want to talk a bit about my latest film, which was produced in 2019. It was released last year in early 2020. It's called Samasta. It's a film that is a collaboration between the European Union and also Indonesian Ministry of Environment. And the film somehow very much related to what's happening right now in the world, which the show of a greater power of nature take over our lives. And Indonesia in that film is shown or portrayed as a nation who has local wisdoms and customary laws, and that related to environmental management. I think what we are facing right now is actually the cause of mismanagement in land management, in our view on environment, and our actions to nature. I hope what we are facing or what we're in our stand after this pandemic is over, we should change our perspective towards nature. As I hope after this you can see the film on Netflix. It's called Samasta, or Islands of Faith. We see 7 people from 7 different provinces, 7 communities, to see their actions towards nature and how they see nature as part of their life, and their action is based on their culture and their beliefs. We have formal religion in Indonesia. We have many customary laws. We have so many culture and so many different type of landscape in Indonesia is very rich, and each land or each environment, of course, has their own answer to protect and to make use of their environment to be part of as part of their lives. And this is very important that Indonesia has the answer, and the answer is towards climate change and towards environmental issues, and the answers and the problem, and also the real effect, the direct effect of climate change or environmental issues are in the rural areas. But the cause of it is mostly in the urban areas, our lifestyle, our consumerism, our paradigm on seeing how it should treat nature. And this is one of the issues that comes up in the film, and I hope we can talk about it also tonight. That we need to keep talking about these environmental issues so that we can make a change altogether. That's all for me. That's it for me, Padino.
Thank you. Before I ask Sohaila, Nick, let me ask you this. Indonesians are earth people, right? Our cultures, our tradition, our way of life have always been respectful of nature, right? But for some reason in the last few decades, we have forgotten about that. We've done some damage to our forests, and there's been quite a lot of corporate greed and a lot of overconsumption, right? And for some reason, economic growth takes precedence over environmental protection or climate security. Why do you think that has happened? And are you optimistic that we'll be able to turn that around again to what it should be, a nature-based lifestyle and solutions?
Yeah. First thing, I think it caused by one of them is urbanization. We have a very high rate for urbanization in the past decades, and this not only moving people but also changing paradigm about our relationship with nature. I think the people who live in the city should be connected to nature more to understand how it works, what nature gives us, clean air, food supplies, water, and all the necessities about our life. And also, I think about the paradigm itself. I think it should be changed after this pandemic. That we are very much in control of what nature is. It's a great power. A small virus can change our life like this, and this is not the first time that we world has experienced this. I think we should learn more about how nature works and how privileged we are with the supply, but we forgot somehow to be connected to nature.
Yeah. Do you think that the COVID-19 crisis that we have now worldwide is a small warning from Mother Nature that look, if you mess around too much with us, I'm just showing you just a little bit of the destruction that can happen to the human race, because the COVID-19 is a product of what happens when there's something called zoonosis. That was the origin of it, where the virus crossed over from animals to human, and then it spread. So do you think that is a way for nature to give us a warning? And as Sri Mulyani, our finance minister, has said, the climate catastrophe is much more dahsyat, much more powerful than the COVID-19 tragedy that we're facing now.
Yeah. We don't know yet where the virus came from and whether it's zoonosis or human to human transmission, how it works in the very beginning. But this is a warning that a virus that's it's always been in our lives can change our life. And this is not the first time that we experienced this. We had this with a lot of black and in hundred of years back, and also the Spanish flu. We should learn. We should change our paradigm about how is our relationship with nature. I think it's very, very important, and this is a wake up call. This is a warning, definitely, and I hope that we can really learn from this.
Okay, thank you. So Hyla, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Tell us your thoughts on the climate danger that awaits us in the future, and what should we do about it, especially the young people, to avoid the climate catastrophe.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, everyone, for coming here today and for having me talk with you. It's such an honor. So yeah, my role at Zero Hour primarily works with global relations and global outreach, so young people around the world. So I've been in this space for a while, and what I've noticed and what is really motivating is that young people just have the power, and it's really the power is in their hands, because the problem is so real for us, because we realize that our future is at risk and it's at danger. A lot of us are going to college thinking about, what am I going to do with my life if this whole entire risk is on top of me in the future. So at Zero Hour, we primarily focus on the intersectionality of climate change. It's not just a black and white issue where it's very clear where it came from, or all the or what we can do to solve it, because it's connected to a lot of different things. It's connected to our healthcare. It's connected to our just everyday lives. It's connected to our homes, our just financials, everything. So at Zero Hour, we focus and we understand that the fact that the climate change issue is very intersectional and is connected to a lot of social justice issues. And in order to move towards a collective solution as a whole with everyone, we need to acknowledge that people are affected by it already right now, today, and affected in disproportionate ways. People that are living in maybe low income or rural areas are already being hit harder than people in different areas. People in the global south are already facing these consequences. So in order to understand this very huge risk, we need to know that it's already happening as it is right now, and move forward by acknowledging the people that are already affected. And then also a huge part of what I do is focus on how climate and health is very related. Like you said, the pandemic is a perfect indicator. It's affecting the people the same way that how climate change is going to affect the whole entire world. It doesn't see any background. It's not going to just say oh, because this person is of this status or of this, they're not going to be affected, because it is a disease in a way as well, climate change. So in order to move towards that solution, the world needs to come together similarly to how it was very impacted by COVID, and figure out a collective solution to move forward.
Do you agree with the assertion that climate change is the mother of all problems, whether it's food security, urbanization, health, everything? Climate change is the mother of all problems. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's definitely a very strong statement, because I like to say that climate change is the root of a lot of different issues. Just similar to a tree, it kind of gives kind of a base to these issues. I'm taking a class right now about food insecurity, and we already have a lot of food insecurity in the world, but because of climate change and because of the impacts on agriculture in the global south, there's going to be emphasized and enhanced food insecurity throughout the world. And we see this happening already, but there are also other ways where climate change is the root of a lot of other problems. For example, just a lot of young people's anxieties or health. I did a research project specifically about people with asthma or hospitalizations due to the pollution in their areas because of the companies. So again, we see that climate change is the root right there in their health problem. So and that is just one of the many issues. So I do entirely agree with that statement.
Yeah. So, right now the situation is clear to see. The scientists agree. 98% agree that climate change is human-induced, and we see all around us the evidence that the nature our weather, extreme weather, and everything is changing because of climate change, and we're heading towards a 3 or 4 degree world unless something is done. But it's still so difficult for people to take action. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I
Especially
think
for governments also. There are a lot of governments that are doing half-hearted steps to take bold actions. Yeah. So why is
yeah.
that?
Yes, very half-hearted steps. So like especially when I talk about the US, we have a huge, like, right now, like a huge movement to get the government to do more, just because like we're not seeing much change in the so little time that we have. Like there's like literal number of years that the IPCC like put out there a report about the time that we have to act. And I think that's because the government is so rooted, especially in the US, like into the corporations that are already like playing a huge role in climate change. So when you think about like the different oil companies or just different corporations that are releasing so much carbon dioxide, for example, the healthcare system releases like a great amount of percentage of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, but a lot of those things are deeply like connected with the government officials. So it's like hard for them to like instigate these policies when like they're funded or they're supported by a lot of these companies and corporations. So in order to move past that, we need to acknowledge that the only right way to kind of solve climate change is to enact policies and like sustainable, just like moves for the society in order to move forward. And I think that requires a lot from just like people to kind of acknowledge that right now what we're doing is not working, so we have to change it. And change is sometimes like a little overwhelming and scary for people, but it's very much necessary in order to move forward.
Yeah. Well, Suhaila, there are two kinds of young people that I see. One is the idealist ones, the one who wants to change the world and who believe they can change the world. And often they do, right? Getting independence, marching for democracies and human rights and so on, right? But there are those who are skeptical, who are skeptics, right? They're skeptical at everything. They're cynical about everything, right? And I see a lot of them as well, right? So what do you do when you see cynical, skeptical young people who say nothing can be done, just let's have a fatalistic attitudes towards climate change? Yeah. What do you say to them?
Yes, honestly, I see a lot of people like that, not even just young people, adults too, at the same time, that are like, you know what, we're too deep into this issue right now. There's not much to do about it. I was just having this conversation yesterday with some friends. They're like, we're already in this like issue. Like, I'm just going to continue doing what I do. But the problem is it's like hard to convince, because if we spend so much time trying to convince a lot of these skeptical people, like how are we going to move forward? The US spent a lot of time arguing with politicians that climate change is real, even though there's science backing it up. There's just like complete data, people already being affected. So I feel like if we spend too much time kind of like trying to convince people, the numbers are already there, the research is already there. It's just we need to like kind of move forward collectively with people that do have hope or just believe in like taking action, because like kind of like toning into the skepticism kind of gives into that mentality itself. But what we can do right now is just like really play into the facts and really point to the science and point to the already reality of what's happening in a lot of different countries and a lot of different communities.
Yeah. Okay. Now back to you, Nick. I follow your Instagram. You travel all over the place, and you always take great pictures. Yeah, Nick. So, congratulations. And by the way, my kids all say hello to you. Yeah. But I'm sure from your travel around Indonesia, you are seeing people who are saying we need homegrown solutions, right? So. Yes, there's a global solution, those from the UN, the Paris Climate Treaty, and so on. But there are also homegrown solutions that the local community think, yeah, this should be done, right? Are you getting a sense of that from your travel, from people who say, hey, you should be listening to us, that, these are the solutions that should be implemented? Yeah.
Sure. Traveling makes my eyes open about the environmental issues, because I'm not only going to one place like once or twice, but in throughout the year, I go back to those places and see how is the quality of the environment, and also talking to the people about their environmental issues. And every places and every landscape in Indonesia has their own problem, has their own solutions, and also their own hope on the environmental qualities around them. So definitely, yes, we should hear them more. We should really pay attention to the diversity of what Indonesia has in terms of landscape, culture, and religion. We should be specific about the issues that happens in provinces, land, mountain, oceans. We have so many things to we have so many things to be talked about, and in terms of in the environment. And definitely, yes, we should learn from them.
Okay. You know, in Indonesia, there was this young girl, Melanie, right? And she was frustrated to see plastics in the ocean, and she did something about it. I think she was only like 15 or 16, and she drove a campaign, and now has become a national campaign with global significance, right? So that was a good success story of how to mobilize the youth, by the youth, for effective environmental action. Why is that not happening on climate change, right? I mean, we're seeing a lot of plastics consciousness here, but on climate, we're not seeing the same scale of mindset. Yeah. Why do you think that is? And maybe Sohaila, you can add to this as well. Yeah. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I think part of it is that this issue, somehow we have to admit that this is, it sounds, climate change issue sounds like a global, and it's only handled by our governments and our owned by selected people, you know, like scientists, activists, this issue. So, but for example, like plastic issues, we see it every day. We can see we can see the problem. We are also part of the problem, but also we can see it in our eyes. It's not only ideas. Climate change issues should be in our everyday talk, and of course we have to really keep talking about it, because we can really get the sense of it right away, especially people who are living in the cities, because we have technologies to support our lives, you know, with air conditioner, with a lot of technologies. But people who live in the rural areas, who live in the coastline, they're really affected directly with the climate change, and they can really feel it, because they're also very prone to the environmental quality that has been decreased, caused by global warming. So I think the awareness, consciousness, and actions should be taken by a lot of people, and we should keep really talking about it.
Yeah, I think you have a point there. I remember what former Vice President Yusuf Kala says, that the Indonesian mentality is that people have to die first before we realize there's a crisis, right? There's not much preventive mentality, right? And what we see is that in Indonesia now, the young people or the general public are not scared enough, because they don't know about the data, they don't know about the danger, and as a result, they feel that, oh, there's time, you know, that's somebody else's problem. So I think you mentioned a very good point. Sohaila, you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. So, and yeah, I totally agree with you. Here in the US too, especially with like COVID or like climate change, unless it's happening right in someone's community or in their backyard, they don't care about what's going on. So it's very sad. But when also, first of all, like Melody is so inspiring. I remember her work in Indonesia, and I was like looking at it. It's so cool to see young people taking action. But when we think about plastic, and when we think about like what young people are involved in, I think it goes back to like the educational system and what we're learning about climate change in school. When I was like in middle school, or when I was like just like in coming up, all I learned about like climate change is that we have to reuse, recycle, and reduce. And that's all I learned. That was the extent of it. But then after learning and like educating myself on the climate change issue, I realized most of the carbon emissions comes from companies and corporations and overconsumption. And I realized that, like, we didn't learn a lot about that in school because recycling or like, reusing plastic sounds more friendly for like an individual to do rather than trying to advocate against like a huge company or corporation. But I think as we like kind of get into more of this issue, education is so important, and making sure people understand the full extent of the climate change issue will help people organize better campaigns around like concrete actions in order to like kind of target this issue as a whole rather than like a very small piece of it, which is like plastic in some cases.
Yeah. Do you agree, Suhaila, and then also Nick, that we are seeing the tide turning? So in the corporate world, where the driving force is profit, obviously, because it's capitalism, right? But they are becoming more conscientious on climate issues and environmental issues. Many investors don't want to invest in things unless they can show a decarbonized footprint. And shareholders are quite particular now on doing activities that do not damage the environment, right? So are you seeing signs here and there that the mindset and the action and the way of doing things are changing in some parts of the world? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I can start. I guess for companies, it's definitely a huge change. You can see a lot of like really big companies, like even adding a sustainability position in their company leadership because they want someone to focus primarily on that. And then you see a lot of people or a lot of companies using it as their marketing. So for example, if you're buying a product, you see now there's like a sticker, like 100% like made out of this product, or 100% sustainable, or 100% recyclable. So it's definitely something that is on a lot of companies' mind. And it's also, they know that it's also like on a lot of people's minds because they're trying to market their product as more sustainable and more carbon free. But definitely the key part is making sure that we still hold more companies accountable and ensuring that more are thinking this way, and also like not just marketing themselves this way, but are actually doing the steps in order to kind of make their company more sustainable.
Yeah. How about you, Nick? Do you think more companies in Indonesia are realizing they can actually make more profit by being more green, more decarbonizing their operations? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with what Suhaila just said. I think now companies are looking at the climate change or environmental issues is a very sexy thing to do. Some are very much committed about it, and some are just using it as a gimmick or make use of it for their benefit. But I think we should be more critical about it, and I believe, I'm optimistic that in our generation we can be really critical about it. But what's most important is actually, I think we should also redefine growth, because as you said, this is a capitalistic system that taken over the financial or how the company works. We should really keep talking about it, so they are really taking it seriously, that the younger generation, we are claiming our rights for a better environment, clean air, food, water supplies. And I think this is very important in the future, that we should really have enough representative in our parliament. We should speak up more, and we should have more and more activists who can really do the work of communicating and advocating for our better environment.
Okay, I have an interesting question from Isana Wardani from University of Mula Warman, right? How can we encourage people to be aware about climate change when a lot of us still struggle to fulfill our basic needs during this pandemic? This is difficult question, right? Anyone wanted to try this? Sohaila or Nick?
Yeah, of course, we have to admit that climate change sounds like a luxurious issues, or it's uh, it's the issue or the topics of the higher power, higher class, and all that. But it shouldn't be. It's really because if you're talking about climate change, we have also micro climate change that's happening around us in um, in 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 the provinces, in rural areas, and the fight for to 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 reclaim back the quality of environment is the rights of all. I think we should see it that way. So yes, economy and economic growth and environment should hand in hand and should be parallel in terms of providing solutions.
Okay. Sohaila, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I completely agree with what Nick said. But I was in Egypt this summer because I was like a lot of my work started there, and that was like one of the biggest just like discussion points for a lot of people. They said, well, right now we can't really afford to do this for our families. Like, what, how can we even have time to like think about climate change? But you need to start small and just look in your communities. Like a lot of the people that I talked to was like, they're very near the Nile River and they saw like the pollution happening. Like, how can you even just do like a small type of action in your everyday life that's not going to add such a huge pressure that could still play a huge role just within your community? Like Nick said, a lot of people imagine that climate change is just a global thing and we need to do something so big to solve it. But the best way is to start in your community and to see, okay, what type of issue is affecting the people within my community right now? And how can I play a small role in helping minimize that?
Yeah, okay. And I want to add to that. I think, look, you got to understand that if we reach a 4-degree world, which is a world like hell, I guarantee you, everybody lose, but especially the poor people. You know, the rich people, they can buy a big mansion on top of the hill, right, and have lots of air conditioning and so on. But the poor will suffer even more, right? And the other thing is, keep in mind, there are a lot of studies out there that prove that once you decarbonize the economy, once you go green, green growth, you will actually produce more jobs, more income, and more gender equality and more quality of life than if you were to follow the high carbon footprint, right? So all the evidence is there, and I think we don't need to choose between what do you call it? Poverty or green growth. I think green growth can actually help to eradicate poverty. Right. There's a question from Gunadharma University, and I think this is addressed to Nick. Nick, I know you were making movies that raise the environmental awareness. But what happens when people watch your movie and they like your movie, but a few days later they go back to their old habits of destroying the nature? You know, so I'm sure you see this a lot. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, this is a long-term investment. The film is very powerful tool to send a message, to get into our head. And how film works is to get into our subconscious. We're probably still doing what we did before watching the film. We cannot change a person and also their lifestyle in after 2 hours, you know. But it should be in their subconscious. And film or books or any other art form will affect their behavior in terms of their in making decisions. Maybe not now, but maybe later. So global warming, environmental issues should be taken as a long-term investment, although we are very much in crisis right now. But we should fight it from a lot of sides. You know, we should attack it from from so many sectors. So it's becoming part of our lives, not only in journal or in any other form of campaign, but a platform like film should be sending the message deeper than we thought.
Yeah, and I think, Nick, if 10 million people watch your show, your movie, and even just 10%, which is 1 million people, change their mind about things, I think that's good enough, right? It doesn't have to be 100%, right? Even just 100,000 people out of 10 million people, they start acting differently the next day. I think that's more than enough, right, Nick?
Even though one person
keep doing it.
who will become leader in the future can be affected by those messages. It's more than enough.
Totally agree. Totally agree. There's a question from Natalie Valentine. Maybe this is for Suhaila. I saw so many 100% nature safe products are way more expensive than the non-nature safe products. What is your thought about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a huge issue that right now, like, it's hard because when you tell people you need to be more sustainable, like you said, like a lot of low income in communities are already deeply affected. So when you tell them, oh, you need to be more sustainable, how can they be more sustainable when these products are more expensive? The company's justification for making a product more expensive when it's 100% natural is because they're going to say that the materials are harder to gather and like to do. But we should also like try to push for companies to make sure that these products are like similar prices, because if we really want people to move towards a more sustainable future, we need to make sure that the options are very equitable to the current option. Because again, like it's going to be hard to transition or make a change when the other option is better and safe, or better and cheaper. So yes, definitely pushing more companies to make sure that these products can at least be of similar pricing or of similar accessibility, because sometimes even these like natural products are like at high markets only in like rich areas. So and that's why, like, you know, people in like different like high class communities are like maybe or upper income communities are like, you know, vegan or getting all these like natural products just because they have those resources in their community. So we need to make sure that we push for more like 100% natural or like healthier and sustainable foods in all communities before telling people to go out and buy them.
Yes. Very good point. And I want to point out that, look, we're only seeing the beginning of change in green products. The solar panel in the last few years, the price of solar panel has gone down 85%. So it was like $100, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Now it's $15, and it will keep going down. Remember when the cell phone, right, was very expensive and only the rich people have it. Now the tukang beca, or they have two phones, right, because things are so cheap, right? So I'm very confident that a lot of green products are in the process of becoming cheaper and cheaper, right? I have a question from Reza Faris Manda, and he's asking Nico. Yes, a lot of young generation have been highly exposed to screen, watching movie, playing online game, live streaming, and so on, where we spend a lot of time using energy consuming what entertainment industry is offering us. So in that case, do you believe that the entertainment industry should also preserve environment and contribute to climate change prevention?
Yeah, I think it's our responsibility, I think, to be part of the discussion about environment, especially people who are working in the entertainment industry, because we have the privilege of having our platform to be reached by a lot of people especially in the countries with big population. But the thing is that I think we cannot go alone. Of course, the scientists, activists, people who are working in the entertainment industry and government, everyone should be all together in this. And the key, I think, is to keep talking about it, to keep talking about the environment, giving pressure to companies, government, to people, criticize one another. I think it creates a healthy environment for the discussion about climate change or any environmental issues. Yeah.
Okay. I have an interesting question from Jane Manalu from the High School of Penabur Kota Wisata. And I think I want both of you to answer this. I don't think Indonesian politicians or political leaders care about climate change. How do we make them care about it? And I think this goes through to the US as well. I'm sure there are some political leaders in some states that are still not convinced about climate change. So question, how do we make politicians and political leaders care about climate change? I'll give it to Sohaila first, and then after that, Nick. Yeah.
Yes, sure. That's a very, very important question. So the US actually just had our recent presidential election, and surprisingly, climate was a big part of their campaign, right? Because people, like especially like younger people and like a lot of just like voted people that are eligible to vote, emphasize the fact that, you know, climate is going to be a priority. It's not always just, you know, health or like financials, it's also climate. So a lot of presidential politicians had a whole entire part of their campaign dedicated to what their policy is going to be about climate, because they realized that in order to get elected, this is a priority on the people's minds. So we need to make sure that we emphasize that climate is our number one priority. And then people, when like they're becoming elected or like politicians, they realize that in order to even like be considered to be elected, they need to like focus on like climate policies. Like Esther mentioned, I'm from Florida. So people there like entirely do not really care about the climate, honestly, like the politicians especially. So we show up at like, we have different town halls or we email and call them and we talk about what are your policies about climate? Like we emphasize that and we bring that on their mind. And if they don't really do any sustainable action, then they kind of fear re-election, because if they don't really fulfill the promises or fulfill what are people's priorities, we need to emphasize that they won't be reelected. So just making sure that politicians understand that this is a priority and like emphasizing that through any way, whether it's education or advocacy campaigns. And then they realize that in order to move forward, especially like in a time like this, they need to make sure that it's like a number one thought on their mind and how they can like implement policies regarding around that.
Nick, what do you think the chances are that in the next elections in Indonesia, 2024, environment or climate will be a big issue? Or do you think it won't be an issue?
I think it should be the issue. We can learn from what Sohaila said about the last election in the US, about how people are giving pressure to the legislatives to really to point out the commitment about the environmental issues. And we have the election we have a very important election in 2024. I think we should really give pressure to the legislatives for them to really point out their view on the environment. And also we should appreciate and support people who are committed in people who are having a big commitment in environmental issues. And of pointing out what the question that why politicians, they don't care, it's just like I think the answer is from us, from the people who are the voters. We should really keep talking about it, giving pressure. We don't have enough representative in our parliament to really talk about environment, and this is also part of a big problem but I'm optimistic as long as we really keep talking about it and learn from this pandemic and from the data and from the activism and from the movement of the young people who show that we are really serious in reclaiming our quality of environment.
Yeah, I hope so. You know, the trouble is elections is mostly about money politics, you know, whether in Indonesia or in the US or elsewhere. And there is a great perception among politicians that there's no money in environmental issues, there in climate issues. You know, the money is in the industry, right? Or in you know, plantations, in coal, in that's where the money is at, not on climate issues, you know. So unfortunately, that mindset is still there, and we need to undo those kind of mindset, right? There's a question from Nabila Itzni. Interesting question. I think this is for you, Nick. Yeah. The problem that we have with environment is that people in urban areas do not have spiritual connection with the nature, like how it was shown in Nick's film Semester here. So how do we as people who live in the city fulfill the emptiness of the spiritual connection to nature when we live so far apart from it? It's a good question here.
Yeah, yeah, I think cities should have better green, more and more green areas. That's one thing for sure. Big cities like Jakarta, we don't have enough green areas, so that we cannot really witness how the nature works and how to be in the environment that is healthy for us, as a part of our learning process to go back to nature. I think this is also part of the thing that we need to fight, that we need to have a healthier cities. We need to have greener cities. We should really take cities as our responsibility to the nature. And it's true. I think we have so much apart from nature. And even though, you know, we travel, sometimes we don't really go to areas or a place that is environmentally, the quality is really good, you know, so that we don't feel like how really a good air, a good water supply, and good food, where it comes from, because we are so apart. But we should change our mindset, and one of them is making our cities greener.
Okay, so we're coming to the end of our conversation. I have a last question from me, actually. So this is to both of you, the same question. So this is 2050, right? 2050, so Hayla, I don't know how old you'll be. Probably you'll be about 50, 60 years old. And Nick, you'll be about 70. I don't know how old you guys are, right? But you have kids. And the reality is that by that time, you will live in a 4-degree world, right? Because no countries are taking enough actions, and you have extreme heat, right? Weather outside is about 50 degrees. You have extreme weather, you have flood every day, and things, you know, you have food scarcity. Life is definitely not comfortable. There's a lot of health issues. It's hard to breathe. A lot of people die because of pollution, right? So it's world that resembles hell. And your daughter asks you, Mommy Sohaila or Daddy Nick, why didn't you do something? Or what did your generation do anything to help prevent this hell world that we're living in, right? What would you say to them? What would you say to your daughter when she asks you that here? Sohaila?
Wow. Oh, even though I don't want to imagine a world like that, I think the biggest thing I'm going to say is that we had our priorities in the wrong place. I think right now, like you said, and like a lot was mentioned, people think this problem is still yet to happen. It's happening right now in our own backyards, and it's affecting different communities. Yet people are just afraid of change and afraid of like looking into the future, and are afraid of like taking that next step. And their priorities are just like on the now versus what the future could be and what it could look like. And we need to start caring about future generations, because it's kind of privileged to even just, think about ourselves and like act on our own issues right now. Maybe the biggest like concern right now we have is like a test we have, or like maybe like going into work. But we need to think about like future generations and if they're going to have even those same opportunities later on. And we need to be like less selfish, and we need to have our priorities set.
Okay, at least you can tell them that you fought for it. You tried to fight for it, right, Suhaila? Yeah. So, Nick?
If that happens, I would apologize that we don't work hard enough to take care of our environment. And of course, if that happens, it becomes the failure of my generation. I would apologize. It's disastrous.
Yes, but again, at least your conscience is clear, yeah, Nick. That you really fought all of us fought for this, right? But I want to say thank you to Nick and Suhaila. Nick, you've been a warrior, climate warrior. I watch your Instagram, I watch your photographs, and I know your love for nature is real. So thank you on behalf of my kids. Also, they say thanks to Nick, Uncle Nick, right? And Suhaila, you've been really inspiration to us with your fight for selfless fight for the future of our generation and the kids, the next generation. So really thank you for your leadership and your compassion and your energetic effort to save the world, so to speak. So you are the real Avengers, climate Avengers, coming out of the Marvel comic books, right? So thank you so much. I'm going to give the floor back to Esther, who has some announcement. But please stay in the room in the meantime. Yeah.
Thank
Esther?
you, Paulo, for passing it back to me, and thank you also to our climate heroes, climate warriors, climate avengers, whatever you want to call it. You're championing for the climate and the planet right now. Thank you to everybody who has participated. We have seen a lot of your questions coming in. Unfortunately, we do not have enough time to answer all of them, but hopefully both Nick and Suhaila has touched on some of these aspects. I want to notify everyone, if you would like to receive your e-certificate, please fill in the Google form. It will be open until in the next 15 minutes, and then we will be sending your certificate to your email address. I also want to let everybody know that this Climate Heroes Dialogue series, this is not the end. We'll still be bringing amazing climate heroes pairings in the next coming months. So please stay tuned for that. Follow FPCI's Instagram and social media. And this way, hopefully, we can work together to champion climate issues, especially with COP26 now in the near horizon. We also want to ask all of our participants to take climate action by signing our petition at change.org/darurat-iklim. The link to that petition is also sent down below. So with that, I would like to officially close the discussion. We'll be playing a couple of videos for you after this. You can feel free to stay in the room. First, FPCI is convening the Global Town Hall, which is the largest grassrooted foreign policy conference of the year. Last year, we hosted 10,000 people from 83 countries. This year, hopefully, you can participate. And then after that, we'll be playing our video on climate campaign. So without further ado, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to Suhaila, thank you to Nick, thank you to Cardino and all of our participants. Please enjoy the videos we're about to play for you.
Come to Global Town Hall 2021. Register now at www.gth2021.com. See you! Tambayong.
Saya Krisdayanti.
Saya Kalista Iskandar.
Saya Reza Radian.
Saya Chico Jericho.
Saya Chelsea Islan.
Saya Cinta Laura Kiel.
Saya Dian Sastrowardoyo.
Saya Wulan Guritno.
Saya Julia Stel.
Saya Yoshi Sudarso.
Saya sangat semangat menyongsong Indonesia Emas
100 tahunnya merdeka pada tahun
2045 nanti.
Kita semua di Indonesia bermimpi dan menginginkan agar bisa mencapai tujuan Indonesia Emas di tahun 2045.
Sungguh suatu capaian sejarah yang indah
dan luar biasa dalam perjalanan bangsa kita.
Nggak kebayang betapa hebatnya Indonesia Emas nanti.
Insya Allah pada tahun 2045 saya akan mulai mewariskan Indonesia kepada putra-putri saya.
Di usia NKRI yang 100 tahun nanti,
Saya ingin kita semua hidup dalam Indonesia yang Pancasilais,
Yang modern,
Maju.
Makmur,
sejahtera,
hijau, adil, aman,
Bebas korupsi.
demokratis,
Dan tentunya bersatu.
Tujuan tersebut bukan tanpa tantangan.
Ancaman terbesar di tahun 2045 bukanlah pandemi.
Bukan lagi kemiskinan atau kebodohan.
bukan separatisme,
bukan perang nuklir, bukan invasi militer dari luar.
Ancaman terbesar bangsa Indonesia
Di tahun 2045 nanti,
the mother of all problems adalah
Pemanasan global.
di mana suhu bumi rata-rata akan naik
3-4 derajat Celcius.
Itu adalah suhu terpanas sepanjang sejarah manusia. Suhu terpanas di bumi kita yang sudah berusia 4,5 miliar tahun.
suhu tinggi akan membuat planet bumi sakit parah.
saya tidak mau melihat Indonesia Emas dan anak-anak kita nanti
Hidup sengsara dalam bumi yang panas ini.
dengan perubahan cuaca yang ekstrim di mana-mana.
polusi merajalela dan membunuh puluhan juta orang.
hujan deras dan banjir di mana-mana.
Gunung es di Antartika terus mencair.
Air laut akan naik setinggi 1 meter.
Sumber air dunia akan berkurang dengan sangat drastis.
Banyak pulau yang akan tenggelam.
Semakin banyak spesies punah yang disebut the sixth extinction.
Keragaman hayati akan rusak, suhu air laut yang naik, ekosistem laut yang terancam, serta terumbu karang yang banyak mati.
Penyakit semakin banyak menyebar, termasuk malaria.
Stok pangan menurun banyak dan kekeringan di mana-mana.
Banyak tanah yang akan menjadi padang pasir tandus.
Dan konflik berbasis lingkungan yang meningkat juga secara drastis.
Semua ini akibat ulah manusia.
Namun, malapetaka ini dapat juga dicegah oleh manusia.
Karena itulah, ayo kita selamatkan Indonesia dari bumi panas.
Mari kita mulai mengurangi emisi gas rumah kaca Indonesia.
Ayo kita kurangi emisi gas rumah kaca 50% di tahun 2030.
Dan kita kurangi terus sampai akhirnya kita bisa mencapai nol emisi di tahun 2050.
Ayo hijaukan ekonomi kita, jaga hutan kita.
Jaga ekosistem laut kita.
Kembangkan energi bersih dan kurangi segala emisi karbon dalam kehidupan kita.
Sehingga Indonesia Emas 2045 akan hidup dalam bumi yang nyaman, sehat, dan bahagia.
Sehingga Indonesia dapat menjadi bagian penting dalam solusi global perubahan iklim.
Planet bumi harus kita sembuhkan dari sekarang.
Target besar dan mulia ini bisa kita capai.
Ayo kita bergotong royong.
Selamatkan planet bumi.
Selamatkan umat manusia.
Selamatkan generasi kita dan generasi seterusnya.
Kita sambut Indonesia Emas yang penuh harapan.
Selamatkan Indonesia 2045.
Sadarkah Anda, kita mungkin adalah generasi terakhir yang bisa hidup dalam dunia bercuaca normal. Kita juga adalah satu-satunya generasi yang bisa menyelamatkan umat manusia dari bahaya bumi mendidih yang menanti kita selamanya di depan. Ayo kita penuhi panggilan planet bumi, panggilan umat manusia, dan panggilan sejarah. Ayo sebarkan pesan ini dan tanda tangani petisi.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sohaila, for joining in. Let's keep in touch for the global town hall and everything else. Thank you, Padino. Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Bye.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Esther, Sohaila, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.